The history of the moon missions, humanity's greatest step. The moon landing is considered one of the most remarkable achievements of the 20th century. This historic step emerged as part of the space race during the Cold War. The race, which began between the United States and the Soviet Union, was marked by Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin becoming the first human to travel into space in 1961. This prompted the U.S. to set an even greater goal, sending a human to the moon. In a speech to Congress in 1961, U.S. President John F. Kennedy announced the goal of sending a man to the moon and returning him safely before this decade is out, which became the cornerstone of the Apollo program. The Apollo program, conducted by NASA, was the project that achieved the human landing on the moon. In 1969, during the Apollo 11 mission, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to set foot on the lunar surface. The words, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind," were etched in history. A total of 6 Apollo missions took place on the moon, during which astronauts collected scientific data, conducted detailed surveys of the lunar surface, and brought samples back to Earth. This achievement was not only a technological milestone, but also a source of hope and inspiration for humanity. However, the Apollo missions have been met with both admiration and skepticism over the years. Particularly after 1972, the cessation of manned missions to the moon sparked debates in some circles. Nevertheless, modern space agencies' plans to return to the moon have reignited humanity's interest in this historic achievement. The birth of doubts. Early claims against the Apollo missions. Doubts about the Apollo moon missions began to emerge shortly after the 1969 Apollo 11 landing. These doubts were rooted in the Cold War rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, and the limited transparency of the media at the time. Some individuals claimed that the U.S. staged the moon landing solely as a propaganda victory against the Soviets. Certain details seen in the visual and video footage released by NASA contributed to strengthening these claims. Criticisms focused particularly on inconsistencies in the light and shadow patterns in photos taken on the moon's surface, the apparent waving of the flag, and the absence of stars in the images. Another factor fueling the doubts was the skepticism surrounding how the technical and logistical challenges of the moon landing were overcome with the technology of the time. The limited capacity of 1960s-era computers and space technology made some people question whether such a complex mission could have been accomplished. This led to the spread of conspiracy theories, suggesting that the moon landing was staged on a Hollywood set. Furthermore, NASA's explanation that some original data and images from the missions had been lost over time only increased the suspicions. Popular culture and media played a significant role in spreading these doubts. Films like Capricorn 1, 1978, which humorously addressed the idea that the moon missions were fake, brought these theories to a wider audience. Similarly, documentaries and books by conspiracy theorists, particularly in environments with limited access to scientific information, contributed to the growth of these doubts. However, scientists and engineers have successfully debunked most of the claims raised by skeptics. Despite this, these conspiracy theories still occasionally resurface in the modern era. Inconsistencies in the photos, light and shadow contradictions. The photographs taken on the moon's surface during the Apollo missions became one of the main points of attention for skeptics. Specifically, the way light and shadows appeared in these images fueled claims that the photos were staged in a film studio. Skeptics questioned the fact that the shadows in the photos were not parallel, the reflections suggesting multiple light sources, and the instances where objects that should have been in shadow appeared brightly lit. These issues contributed to theories suggesting that the moon's surface was not a real environment, but a fabricated set. Scientific explanations indicate that most of these inconsistencies arise from the unique characteristics of the moon's surface. Since the moon has no atmosphere, light does not scatter as it does on Earth, resulting in sharp shadows. Additionally, the moon's surface is covered with regolith, a highly reflective material. Sunlight reflects off this surface, causing certain objects to appear illuminated even in shadowed areas. The non-parallel shadows are also due to the irregular topography of the moon's surface and the angles from which the photos were taken. Similar phenomena can be observed on Earth, and this fact is often used to debunk the staging claims. However, the insufficient explanation of these details by NASA and the shortcomings in the public relations strategies of the time contributed to the spread of these doubts. Conspiracy theorists use such visual errors to support their arguments, while scientists and photography experts continue to debunk these claims with explanations over the years. Despite scientific facts, the moon photos have become symbols of conspiracy theories in popular culture. The waving flag, debates in an atmosphere-less environment. During the Apollo 11 mission, the appearance of the U.S. flag planted on the moon's surface, as though it were waving, became one of the most common pieces of evidence for claims that the moon landing was faked. Skeptics argued that since there is no atmosphere or wind on the moon, it would be physically impossible for the flag to wave. This image fueled conspiracy theories, such as the idea that the flag is hanging like an object on a movie set. The scientific explanation for this controversy lies in the flag's design and the way it was set up. NASA used a horizontal support bar to ensure that the flag could be displayed properly in the moon's low-gravity and atmosphere-less environment. However, because the bar was not fully extended, the flag appeared to flutter slightly, creating the illusion of movement. The actions of the astronauts during the flag placement, combined with the long-lasting swinging effect in the low-gravity environment, also contributed to the appearance of the flag waving. Additionally, the waving effect was only observed when the astronauts were in contact with the flag. When left untouched, the flag remained completely still. This indicates that the movement of the flag was caused by physical motion, not atmospheric wind. Despite this, the image of the waving flag caused a significant public stir, and NASA's lack of clear communication on the issue and its public relations strategies contributed to the spread of conspiracy theories. Even though these claims have been scientifically debunked multiple times, the waving flag remains one of the most well-known doubts surrounding the moon missions. The absence of stars. Why aren't stars visible in the photos? One of the most commonly raised claims by conspiracy theorists regarding the Apollo missions is the absence of stars in the photographs taken from the moon's surface. Skeptics argued that the lack of stars in the photos proved they were taken in a studio on Earth. This argument stemmed from the belief that, since millions of stars are visible in the night sky on Earth, a similar scene should have been visible from the moon as well. The scientific explanation for this phenomenon lies in the photographic conditions. The cameras used during the Apollo missions were set with short exposure times and low ISO settings to properly capture the bright sunlight on the moon's surface. The moon's surface is highly reflective under the sun, and as a result, the cameras were not adjusted to be sensitive enough to pick up the faint light from the stars. The camera exposure was focused on capturing the moon's surface and the astronauts clearly, causing the faint light from the stars in the background to be lost. This phenomenon can also be observed on Earth. When taking photos of bright objects during the day, the stars in the sky are not visible. Although NASA and independent astrophysicists have repeatedly explained this, conspiracy theorists continue to use this as evidence for manipulation claims. However, from a scientific perspective, the absence of stars does not support the idea that the moon photos are fake. Rather, it clearly indicates that the phenomenon was a technical necessity. NASA's video recordings. Filming errors or real evidence? The video recordings made during the Apollo missions play a significant role in conspiracy theories surrounding the moon landing. Skeptics have pointed to certain details in the video footage as evidence that the recordings were faked. Among the key points of contention are the apparent slow-motion movements of the astronauts on the moon's surface, the lack of atmospheric behavior in the dust rising from the surface, and the clarity of the audio during the landing. Despite many claims, scientists and experts have noted that these details are consistent with the environmental conditions on the moon, such as its low gravity and lack of atmosphere. The astronauts' slow movements were due to the moon's lower gravity, while the dust settling directly onto the surface instead of floating in the air is a result of the absence of atmosphere. Additionally, The limited video technology of the time caused the recordings to appear low resolution and strange compared to modern standards. Some conspiracy theorists have pointed to details such as light reflections, cross shadows, and the suggestion that the camera was held by an unseen piece of equipment, claiming that the footage was shot in a set environment. However, these claims have been debunked through scientific analysis. For instance, the light reflections were found to be a result of the reflective properties of the moon's surface, and the shadows were explained by the moon's uneven terrain. While NASA's video recordings do contain some visual elements that raise suspicion, these can be explained by the physical characteristics of the moon and the technological limitations of the era. Despite ongoing questioning by conspiracy theorists, these video recordings are still regarded as strong evidence confirming the authenticity of the moon missions within the scientific community. Claims of technological inadequacy. Was it possible to go to the moon in the 1960s? The Apollo moon missions were heralded as scientific and engineering marvels of the 1960s, but some skeptics question whether the technology of that time was truly capable of completing such a complex task. The computers, computational power, and technological infrastructure used in the 1960s seemed quite primitive when compared to today's standards. While some believe that a mission like Apollo 11's moon landing could be achieved with the available technologies, others continue to question whether these challenges could realistically be overcome. The primary concern focused on whether the success of the Apollo missions contradicted the inadequacies of the era's computers and engineering technologies. In the 1960s, computers were far less powerful than the personal computers we use today, raising doubts about whether they could perform the precise calculations and data processing required for a mission like Apollo 11's moon landing. The main computer aboard Apollo 11 had only 85 kilobytes of memory and very basic processing power. While this was a revolutionary feat at the time, it led to significant skepticism about the feasibility of such a mission with the technology available. However, the engineering and scientific success of the Apollo missions was made possible by meticulous planning, simulation, and the expertise of the era's specialists. NASA engineers managed the entire mission process through careful planning and extensive simulations. Moreover, the engineering knowledge and resources available at the time were advanced enough to not only make the moon landing possible, but also ensure its successful execution. Today, the success of the Apollo missions is viewed as an example of the engineering skills and scientific vision of the era. Though questions about the adequacy of 1960s technology in making the Apollo missions achievable have largely been answered over time, the engineering skills and efforts demonstrated within the technological limits of the era made it possible for humans to land on the moon. Beyond the claims, responses from scientists, the persistent skepticism surrounding the Apollo moon landings has prompted scientists to provide comprehensive responses to these claims. Allegations that the moon landing was faked, along with popular conspiracy theories, have been repeatedly debunked by the scientific community. Experts have presented numerous scientific explanations and findings that affirm the authenticity of the Apollo missions. These responses are reinforced by both technical details and independent research. One of the most common doubts about the Apollo missions is related to the photographs and videos taken during the missions. Scientists have provided clear and concise explanations, showing how the low gravity and lack of atmosphere on the moon align with the light and shadow effects, phenomena like the flag appearing to flutter, and other unusual visual occurrences. The absence of an atmosphere on the moon resulted in specific physical effects that explain these observations. Additionally, technical details such as why stars are not visible in the photos and how the cameras operated under low light conditions have been frequently clarified by experts. Furthermore, NASA and independent scientists have emphasized that the lunar rocks and soil samples brought back to Earth provided significant data about the moon's surface, even in the absence of gravity. Analyses and research in the field of geoscience based on these samples have provided solid and concrete data about the moon's surface and the landing itself. In addition, the moon landings and the Apollo missions have been confirmed by a number of independent observers worldwide. Scientists argue that the experiments conducted during the Apollo program, the discoveries made on the moon, and the importance of these findings for humanity serve as the most powerful response to such doubts. Since the Apollo 11 mission, further lunar expeditions and advancements in space exploration have reinforced the belief that human landings on the moon are scientifically proven realities. As a result, the scientific community continues to respond to skepticism about the Apollo missions through systematic analysis and observations. The power of conspiracy theories. Why do people doubt? Conspiracy theories are typically based on the belief that certain events are deliberately manipulated by a hidden power or group. The conspiracy theories surrounding the Apollo moon landings fall within this category and have evolved into a powerful belief system among various segments of society over time. These theories often arise from a desire for control in a world that may seem uncertain or beyond one's understanding. Claims that the moon landing was faked have been fueled by the lack of transparency in major governments and international organizations, further strengthening these theories. This situation often drives people to seek simpler and more understandable explanations for complex and significant events. Another factor is the human tendency to believe that extraordinary events need simple explanations. The moon landing, particularly considering the technology available in the 1960s, could be perceived as extraordinary and almost impossible. Explaining such an achievement might seem too complex or unbelievable for some, which is why simpler, more accessible conspiracy theories are often proposed. Additionally, rapid technological advancements that do not always align with people's perceptions of what is possible can further fuel skepticism. The rapid pace of technological development can make it difficult for people to accept these achievements and may lead them to question them more deeply. Media, particularly social media, also plays a crucial role in the spread of conspiracy theories. The internet and digital platforms provide a fertile ground for these theories to spread quickly. People can easily find views similar to their own beliefs, creating communities that reinforce their convictions. Social media, by quickly disseminating and solidifying information, also enables individuals to come together with others who share and validate the same views. These communities can rapidly propagate misinformation and speculation, further strengthening individuals' doubts and beliefs. There is also a psychological foundation for conspiracy theories. People have a natural desire to see the world as a safer and more predictable place. In a complex and uncontrollable world, the idea that significant events are controlled by certain powers can provide comfort and reassurance to some individuals. Such theories make the world seem more explainable and controllable, while also reinforcing underlying fears and insecurities. These psychological factors help explain why conspiracy theories are so powerful and continue to spread. Current space missions and the facts about the moon. In recent years, advancements in space exploration and new missions have provided fresh perspectives on the old debates surrounding the Apollo missions to the moon. Modern space missions are helping to dispel doubts and offer more evidence for the reality of human missions to the moon. NASA's Artemis program, one of the largest initiatives aimed at returning to the moon, is a key example. Artemis I successfully reached the moon's orbit in 2022, and Artemis II is scheduled for a manned mission to the moon in 2024. These missions not only reaffirm the achievements of Apollo, but they are being conducted in a time of far more advanced technology. Projects like Artemis aim not only to land on the moon, but also to establish permanent bases on its surface. This step is meant to make lunar exploration more sustainable and long-term. Unlike the Apollo program, these missions are supported by more sophisticated technologies and present opportunities for new discoveries. For example, the Space Launch System SLS rocket used in Artemis is much more powerful than previous rockets, allowing for heavier payloads to be transported to the moon. This will enable lunar missions to be more efficient and scientifically meaningful. The role of the private sector in space exploration is also growing. SpaceX's Starship project and other private companies' lunar endeavors are making these missions more commercially and scientifically comprehensive. These companies plan to send both crewed and uncrewed vehicles to the moon using technology far beyond what was available during the Apollo missions. SpaceX's test flights to the moon in 2023 have provided significant evidence for the feasibility of such missions. These developments bring humanity's return to the moon and future missions to Mars closer to reality. Scientific research on the moon continues to advance at a rapid pace. New discoveries on the moon's surface provide further insights into its geological structure and history. Space probes sent by NASA and other space agencies are investigating lunar resources to determine whether they could serve as potential sources of materials for future human settlements. With these new findings, all doubts about the moon missions are becoming increasingly irrelevant. Modern space missions prove that human landings on the moon are not a one-time achievement, but rather an ongoing and expanding process of discovery.